All right, it is 7 p.m. Glenda can hear us on Tuesday, September 6th, 2022, and we are going to open the committee's meeting. Do roll call, please.
Yep, I have committee members, Chris Samples.
Here.
John Talbot.
Here.
William Lunsinger is absent. Nathan Moss.
Here.
Jen Christensen.
Here.
Bill Motisi.
Here.
President Rick Worm.
Here.
And Treasurer Brenda Onabaney.
Here.
My clerk Sandy Mazem here. Public Works Supervisor Brett Fergie.
Here.
Park Supervisor Nathan Hill.
Here.
And Engineer Matt Hanson.
Here. All right. Entertain a motion for the minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve August 2nd, 2022 Committee of Committees minutes.
Second.
Jen makes a motion to approve the August 2nd, 2022 committee meeting minutes. John seconds. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Motion passes 701. Move on to the report of the officers. I do believe you have down below. So really, I have nothing this evening. Sandy?
I just ask that every single person in this room see me before they leave this room today.
Uh-oh. The good news or bad? Cash award.
I'm no cash award.
Gift card.
I just need answers from all of you.
Okay.
We would not be able to accept it if it was,
So
unfortunately.
please see Sandy before.
All of you that see me before you leave.
Oh, I.
All
Do
right.
not.
Brenda,
Who's you going to have?
I don't have anything right now.
we'll move on to Matt.
Hold on before Matt starts.
Oh, you had your turn.
I have to circle back because I'm hearing it in the audio.
Go, Jen.
So the audio tonight, you guys cannot hear it out of the speaker. It is super sensitive though. So all of those side comments that typically not picked up by your audio is being picked up tonight. So if everybody could be somewhat quiet when others are talking, it helps with the recording. Thank you.
Matt.
All right, I'm good. Okay. Microsurfacing project, they got the repair work done on August 30th. There's just some striping items that need to be completed before that project can be closed out. Page 2, the Edson Road seal coating, that was completed on August 30th as well. That's projects completed. The Junction Road sidewalk replacement in front of the fire station. We took bids on the 23rd. The low bid for what Dale had referred to as the phase 1 bid was $72,547.30. Our estimate was $68,012, so it was about $4,500 over our estimate. The low bid on the phase 2 bid, which is, I think, primarily on the fire station side of it, that estimate the low bidders bid was $57,262. Our estimate was $39,525. And the big difference really on both of them was really the concrete driveway pavement 8-inch. That was basically the difference in the phase 1 bid. Difference in cost. And then on the phase 2, I think there was roughly $15,000 or $16,500 difference there. And I think the bid on the phase 2 portion, there was about a $13,000 difference in that cost just in that one bid item. So seems like for whatever reason that one bid item contributed most of the overage and stuff on both the phase 1 and phase 2 costs. I think Dale's probably waiting for his recommendation. Do we want to get back with fire department to see what their level of participation?
Actually, Fergie and I were discussing, whether we're gonna move ahead with it this year or wait for next year.
Okay,
Possibly rebid it again in March.
okay,
If we can get a better price. More for me is the fact that we didn't budget for that amount of money.
sure.
Because of the first and then the second and then the third.
Yep.
So we still have an issue with that. So, and I would like to let the fire station know that it's more money than what we have, and then tell them, we expect it to be this amount of money and maybe even, they can contribute to some to the engineering costs because the village shouldn't put the whole entire amount.
Okay,
See if that's acceptable to them and I think maybe go forward. So we probably, you know, we're gonna talk about it, but we probably will be waiting till.
Okay.
Is that, I assume we would rebid it then?
Yep. We would just really need for the board, if that's the direction, we just need to reject all the bids and then just to let all the contractors know we're rejecting them all, and then we'll just figure out a schedule for bidding this winter, so it's ready to go in the
When
spring.
do you need to know that by?
As far as rejecting the bids, I'd have to take a look. I didn't have the, usually you have 60 days to evaluate the bids and make an award, so after the bid opening.
Then we will let you know before that.
All right, sounds good. And then, next page, the Rebuild Illinois Downtown and Main Street Capital, grant application. I think everybody knows by now, the village was successful, got $3 million for the commercial subdivision on 72. So congratulations. I mean, competitive program and it's a lot of money.
Would you be able to answer a question?
Sure.
Sorry, I wasn't sure if he was did you do it?
I prepared the grant application. Yep.
Yeah.
Well, thank you then.
Yeah, good.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, thanks. The only thing I wanted to know is when it's complete and we have the building in place, what's the time frame that we have to keep it? And then can we sell it? And
We'll have to take a look if there's any long-term, whether you can sell it down the line. What they don't want you to do is build it and turn around and sell it, because the grant's really supposed to go towards the village. So
Right.
it's going to be a rental. We'd have to see, if there's a time frame in there where potentially you could sell the building at some point.
so the idea is that then lease it out for, I don't know, 5-10 years, whatever.
Yeah, you could probably set up, depending on how many different spaces you have in the building, whether it ends up being 2 or 3 spaces. I think we had planned for 3. You can set up your lease terms and agreements, the length, however long you'd like to make it.
All right, thank you. That's all. I just wasn't sure how that went. I read some of the stuff in it there, but I didn't see where it dictated whether or not you at some point would recoup the funds that the village put in somehow or not. Because I did see that the village portion would be 198.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep, out of everything, and that includes the building and all the site development costs. So that'll put in all the roadway, detention, storm, water, everything will be in there. So once you're done, you'll have all the infrastructure in there. You'll have a building that you can actually lease out some space to, and you're really ready to basically sell lots to people that want to build on the other lots. So.
And that's all, Matt, that's all at market value, right? We can't undercut the
That
rent.
would be more of
Yeah, I don't know if the grant has any restrictions, John, on what you're able to charge for the rent. I think that's really probably up to the village, really, what they.
I'm sure the attorneys would have something to say about that, huh?
Yeah, maybe I'll just read.
Because there's other property we had to sell it with a certain amount of whatever the appraised value
Yeah.
was for it.
The only other thing related to that, Sandy, I'm not sure if you're getting emails it's coming to you, the emails from DCO, but you'll probably get something.
I've gotten them. I am.
Oh, you're getting them?
I've got
if
a
you-
couple.
Okay, if you get anything, probably one of the first things that we'll probably have to do is clear all the environmental on the project. So there's usually a ERR, environmental review report that we have to do, and it'll tell us which agencies we have to get clearance letters and stuff from. So.
All right, it depends on who it goes to as to whether Brenda gets it or I get it, but anything I've been getting regarding the project, I've been forwarding to her, so with regard to how to copy on it.
Yep. Nope. Sounds good.
I've got the Gaddis stuff. I'm so excited.
Oh, you can't get away from that.
I know.
And that's all I have. So like I said, congratulations on the grant. That's good.
All right.
I said it.
Committees, community development events, Jen?
All I have is working on the Halloween drive-through. Maybe that. is going to be on October 15th. I haven't set it, I haven't figured out a time yet, but that's the date I have scheduled at the fire station. And that's all I have.
Anybody have anything for finance and William?
No.
Okay. Ordinance enforcement, Bill?
I have nothing unless you have something for me. And other than that, okay.
Parks, John?
Nate joined us this evening with some updates. Nate?
Yeah, we opened the bid for the phase one of the pond project. You can go ahead. Yeah, go ahead and put it up there. 'Cause that's
Hold on,
my-
and then I forgot.
they're kind of my notes. So we had the engineer's estimate of 1.4, including the clay liner. We then had 3 bids that were submitted, and of the 3,
You can't find West. I think that's all I can get them.
so like, yeah.
There we go.
Cool. So you can skip to the next one. The original cost estimate for phase one was 1.2 million. Or sorry, total cost was 2.4 with both phase, with all of those amenities that you see in the on the master plan that was developed. The board feedback that I received was that you'd like to do the project in phases instead of all at once. So we looked at doing phase one of the pond and the northern part of the park, with the fields and the pond being dredged to 10 to 15 feet deep. And the engineering estimate for that phase to do that pond and dirt work was 1.2 million plus 160,000 for a clay liner, which is recommended for this situation, just to have insurance to reduce the fluctuation of the water levels. The engineering estimate for adding all the recreational amenities in phase two was, like I said, $1.2 million. Next slide. So like I said, we went out to bid. We got 3 bids back from Martin, Current, and Stenstrom. Martin being the cheapest at 1.4 plus the 160,000 for the liner, which is the alternate bid, to a total of 1.589, I believe. So it was 25% over the engineering estimate. And that was a lot of that was the dirt work cost doubling, either due to fuel or other issues. So the first question Billy asked was, how do you pay for it? And so the next slide would be my funding solutions. So phase one, if we were to go with the bid, we would need to come up with $1.6 million, basically. Of note, since I've started working here due to the pandemic and other budget measures and deferred projects, I've saved the village $1 million. Plus I've budgeted 650 this year. So in the past 3 fiscal years, we had a surplus of 300, and 300,000. And then this year I've budgeted 650. And so my goal there would be to, in this fiscal year, start the project and then budget for the next fiscal year to pay the remainder. And then the phase two, I would suggest applying for a OSLAD grant to do the amenity. I'll add all the amenities like the 4th diamond, the recreation paths, parking lots. And reminder too, if we do end up purchasing the 10 acres north of the property, we will have to develop it within 3 years of that purchase. So it's a lot of these phase two projects to be included in there to develop that 10 acres. So that would be based on the engineer's estimate, 1.2 million, and the maximum grant we can get from OSLAD is 600,000. So that would maximize the grant funding for the phase two. So that would be a total project, out of pocket for the village of 2.2 million over 3 fiscal years. And then we would receive $600,000 in grant funding. So that's my philosophy on funding it. And then the third slide, or the last slide, would be basically, or I'm sorry, the fourth slide, the last slide would be, Danny, can you go to the next slide? Sorry. There are, so estimated cost of capital projects needed if project is not funded. So if we do nothing, I still will have $1.2 million of parking lots that need to be repaired and replaced. What did I say? Path paving will need to be done to add a 4th diamond, ADA accessibility, concession stand, restroom facilities, those types of things. So just some of the core, even some of just the core components that would be within this grant or this project. If we didn't go through with it, I will still be coming to this board for $1.2 million to do repair and replace and add to the park those amenities at least. So just trying to frame it there in that, although it's expensive, there's still going to be costs that we will have to incur if we don't proceed with the project or apply for grants to help fund them. I will need to add a new parking lot on the new property. I will need to repair and replace the existing parking lot and paths. They're getting to the point where they need to be replaced. So if anybody has any questions, I'm happy to answer any.
Total project time, phase 1 and phase 2 would
It'd be like 3 years.
3 years is what I thought. Okay.
Yeah.
So first
From
phase,
start to done.
is it like, are we splitting it like evenly, like a year and a half to get the first phase done and then a year and a half for the second phase? Or is one phase substantially, this looks simpler compared to the master plan that we have going on, so.
Yeah, this would take not as much time.
Okay.
And speaking with the contractor, they are somewhat flexible on timing as far as start time and dates. The other thing that we have is a lot of material because we're digging the pond deep. So we will need to, we could reduce some of our transport and hauling costs if we were to find a more local area to dispose of our material that we're excavating, which is just basically subsoil fill type material. It's not like we're not getting rid of black dirt.
Things.
So yeah, the ideal timeline would be they start working, finish up in the spring. We pay for that first phase and this and next year we apply for an OSLAD grant to do phase 2 now. And then that would be potentially awarded in the fall, where we could go out to bid again in the spring to do all of the phase. So it would technically fly over probably 4 fiscal years, but 3 calendar years kind of
From start to finish.
from start to finish. And so the next thing on the list here, regardless of if we go for this project or another one, would be I would suggest that we apply for an OSLAD grant in this funding cycle. Again, to pay for those, if we were to proceed with phase 1 and pay for this, or if not, then we could apply for the OSLAD grant to do phase 1. However, I will say the OSLAD grant is it's not going to be as attractive of a project to dig the hole, so to speak, to build a pond. The OSLAD grant would be more attractive for the recreational amenities that we're adding. So that's why I was suggesting to request that funding to add the amenities in phase 2 rather than the pond itself in phase 1. And then, what's that?
I'm gonna take the slideshow down. Did you need another?
Yes, I'm sorry.
Or did you
Yeah,
want it to
done.
go back to a certain page?
No, that's unless anybody has any questions about specifics and costs or whatever.
So like when they're doing like the pond, the dirt moving and stuff like that, is that are there other parts of the park that can continue to go on?
Yes.
Be
The whole-
used, so
yes.
we're not shutting it down.
The northern half of the park will be off limits, so to
Okay.
speak, during construction. But we will still have the whole southern part of the park and, you know, the other properties that we own to utilize.
Okay.
Use. The biggest issue I could see would be soccer in the spring. But their needs fluctuate from year to year, so we could accommodate them with 10-acre park and other properties.
So then when they did the construction, would they do it in like pieces? So like the pond project would be just one project that they would do solely that, or are they just going to
It would be, so the
like
first.
just go all in on everything?
The first phase would be to basically deepen the pond and shape it, construct it, fill in the detention basin and remove the sled hill and shape that area for athletic fields.
Okay.
So that's phase one, because just the mobilization of, you know, digging a pond and stockpiling dirt and then coming back and moving was and not considerable, but it added some cost to come back. So
Doing
we
more.
figured while they're out moving dirt, let's get all the mass grading done to get that template set for that whole northern half of the park, which will add 3 full-sized soccer fields to our existing park, which right now we have 1 full-size soccer field area, but it's really poor quality. The soil is poor, the turf is poor. So if we had 3, it would deepen the pond and expand it a little bit, fill in the detention pond and add 3 soccer fields all at once. And then, you know, phase 2 would do all the other amenities once those are done. Kind of depicted in the.
I would assume that the 1.2 estimate that's for the phase 2 will also be a higher cost when it finally comes to fruition, especially if we're pushing this almost 2 years out from now.
The good part about that is we would have a menu of recreational amenities that we could omit or add depending upon the final budget. So we would sit down between now and submission and recalculate those costs, revisit all of the amenities that we'd want to add. And my suggestion would be to hit that. We'll try to get it to around that $1.2 million to maximize the matching with the grant. And it has a lot of times, if you receive a grant to purchase a property and go back for another one to add amenities, that's often an approach that like park districts and other villages do. You get the money to buy it, and then you go back and get the development money. So we could adjust those amenities to kind of stay in that sweet spot of budget. Whereas this one's just one big dirt moving project. There's either we make the pond not as deep and not as big, and save a couple $100,000 in dirt work, or
I mean, the whole point of this is to do it what we,
Right the first
yeah,
time.
well, we assume to be doing it right
Right
this
the-
time and then not having to come back and make any adjustments later, correct? I mean, this will,
Yeah.
should be fit all needs of now and future potential growth that we would have.
And I will say that with the pond, it does include erosion and reinforcement matting around the shoreline to reduce erosion, and then a clay liner to reduce the fluctuation in water levels that you would normally see in like a natural situation.
So where do we get all the money from? What currently is, as I calculated, to be about $3.5 million for the purchase of the new land.
General fund.
Do we have an extra $3.5 million?
Yeah. Well,
Do we? I don't know. I thought we used our reserves to pay, or we were using.
We still
our
have
reserves
reserves.
To pay off that.
We still have some reserves.
How much? That's all right. You
Okay.
you can tell me
Haven't
later.
seen the board.
It's gonna be
If
close,
it's been-
but over the years, we're gonna increase
Tell
our,
me.
our revenues and,
Are we? I mean, I thought the
well,
whole point of us tightening our belt is that we were not, our revenues were declining.
they're gonna get revenues and pretty soon the IEP loan is
Gonna be
gonna
done. I get
gonna be
that.
done, so we'll
Yeah.
have that extra.
Yeah.
750, so.
But I think if we're gonna take $300,000 from the past 3 years to help pay for phase one,
But
that's taking the money we've saved.
I thought when we first discussed the pond project, it was $600,000. How'd it get to 1.6 million?
Oh, it became a
The
park
basic
project,
pond.
not a
Yeah.
pond project.
Yeah.
Well,
I believe it's
I
pond, right?
understand that, but
That was my.
Digging a hole and.
we did
because I
talk
have-
about 600,000, not 1.6
Yeah.
million.
Yeah,
So.
Everything.
inflation.
Inflation, everything.
Willard Hoffman came up with a dig everything deeper
We don't have to pay the
proposal
loan.
back in 2008,
Gonna
and
be fine.
that was $600,000 at that time.
I mean, that was what? I mean, we're talking almost
That
20 years
number we
ago.
used when we came to the board, the 600,000, and we got it off of 2008 estimate.
No.
All
What
right.
I'm saying is that those are like the
During a housing
the
crash where everybody was cheap.
master, it relates.
See
to
you
the
again soon.
Master plan and those amenities.
That makes sense.
So we're looking for some input and or direction. We need to at some point award the bid or reject the bid.
Yes, we do have to.
Come up with a plan.
Tell Martin either sorry or for yes or no.
What- The other thing is there's consideration to making the pond smaller and not as deep, which would reduce the cost, but that's not the original intention. When we all spoke about this before, we wanted a deeper pond. We wanted all that taken care of. Unfortunately, the dirt work is $900,000 of that cost. The only, Nate didn't touch on it, or he did, but the only way we really would see any significant saving is dirt is that we could dump it somewhere else. In the event we were to own that land behind us, certainly we'd be able to place some of it there, but I don't know that that would come to fruition next year. Even if we delayed till next year, it would come in time to even use that. So I think you kind of got to look at what the costs Nate's put forward is where we're at on that. Or we can just say, forget it and let it all just do whatever it's going to do. But then Nate's other point is some of these other things he mentioned, we're still going to have to
Right.
do,
Still have to
which would be
fix.
built into at some point the
Some type
pond
of a-
park project.
Some type of a project.
So I mean, so if you take that out somehow and figure out, I mean, roughly we're short 300,000, some give or take. And if we get the grant, if we end up getting the Oslant grant, we would come in really under the original estimated 2.4 in the first place. But I don't want to sit here and say we got it, but I mean, ultimately, we're going to be short if we don't.
And the whole idea behind the pond project was that the fact that it's supposed to be a retention for the water that runs off of all the acreage to the north and west.
It does take
Land.
surface water.
So that takes
Takes
a lot
some.
of water and it's silted in over the years. It's only a few feet deep now.
Mhm.
It used to be deep enough that it'd be over my head. But now it's not.
How
And
much
that's-
this was kind of budgeted to begin? Like how much of this project?
650 is what we have in the.
For this year,
cur-
for this
Per-
year.
So
Per year.
Yeah, for this year, that's what we budgeted for this year.
I think, and partially agreeing with
was more
Chris, I have to say, we have to look at what we need and what we want as being different things and approach it from that, because I don't know, 2 some odd million over the next couple of years seems like a lot of money.
You know, I'm not
But-
totally opposed to it, though. I mean,
Never getting cheaper.
No,
well, that's true. I'm not totally opposed to it, especially if we could spread it out over 4 fiscal years. As long as we have the income, that's my issue. Is where's the money coming from? And it really depends on if our income is going to be stable for the next 3 or 4 years.
and don't get me wrong, I love the idea of having more fields and more amenities and more for our children to do, but it's again, with what we dropped back to our lowest income rate ever since having land. And I think we need to definitely weigh that with the expenditures.
But part of this is the pond project too, right? Like, so it is something that we're in need of, right? Like this is
It's
a,
been a need for a while.
we have to address this.
Yep.
And so, I mean, just doing that separately, I mean, this is 3/4 of the price of the bid is,
I mean, the
or,
earth,
you know, I mean, or of the first phase anyways, is what, 900,000?
900,000 is.
Is
your-
digging in dirt, right? So,
So the
I mean, this
other
is a bill that somehow, some way we're gonna have to have. I mean, yeah, we can lessen dirt and do a less than adequate job, but I mean,
Well, I don't think we should ever.
but I think that's a ridiculous conversation.
Cause I mean, the
Right.
900,000 is the set number. I mean, you can't get away from, and that's, we'll just call it a fix it number.
I mean, you could,
So if you did nothing else, then just, you're at
I
900,000.
mean, we could pray for gas prices to really tank, but I mean, I don't, that'll
No.
happen ever again. So, I mean, banking on that isn't a good idea. I mean, that's where most of this is being eaten up is in fuel costs, I'm assuming. So,
Yeah.
But again, I think we need to weigh what our income possibilities are and like we said, we know the economy's turning the wrong way.
but we know where our income is for, let's say, the next 2 years, right? Where the majority of the phase one is coming from, correct? I mean, we're not,
I have no idea.
No.
That,
I would never say right now with the new ownership.
Okay.
Have any idea where our money's going?
okay,
we probably have an idea what this full,
this fiscal year,
This-
right?
This, yes.
Okay,
give or take. Right.
which is
Yeah.
half of the money that we need to come up with that we have.
We never
It's a lot of
anticipated we knew the one contract was coming to an end out there. We never anticipated they would in turn run around and drop off about another half of their income off that, but they did get rid of stuff that created odors. So that was never anticipated. They would get rid of that much of their service. I would anticipate they will start building their service back up. They'll try to bring in more streams of waste. But until we see that, we need to consider that our budget is going to be significantly lower than it's been.
Levin, what-
Lowest, this is lowest ever, right?
And what, when do we have
So
to,
far, it's been holding steady for the 2 checks we've gotten this year. It's been holding in comparison to the last 2 years. So it hasn't,
So we've plateaued at this current, you would say, or
well-
close to?
well, every quarter I see how it is the year before, so.
when do we have to have
Can't
the $1
say,
million
but-
or when do we have to start the other project? I mean, I just want to know how we're allocating funds.
When do we,
I'm not,
I'm talking a minute.
okay, good.
I'm okay with phase one. Cause it gets the dirt out, it creates solves the problem we have. And gets the dirt
Mhm.
put out where it needs to be. If that's the case. I just don't know about spending another 1.2 on amenities until we see what we actually have for income.
Well,
We
that
don't
part-
have to do that for
that
another
part-
2
Right,
years.
because we can
I
do-
mean,
That on hold, right?
Cause
So-
I understand.
what did?
Just want to make you all aware that
What was
the
the
income has
phase
not been what we've
timeline?
experienced for a lot of years.
So
And,
I was just suggesting the OSLAD grant because the current, it was just announced at the beginning of the month and the current, it closes September 30th. So it's a very short application window. So I'm just throwing it out there as an option for funding. That's, I
oh, but
wouldn't say urgency,
Say
but
do it.
that's
I like
that.
grants.
Oh, yeah, it's. free
I mean,
money.
and yeah, and it took a plan as we were going to, and then if we don't get the grant, then we can revisit and recalculate what phase two would look like at that point, or
What-
how phase two turns into 4 more phases, you know,
You know
or
what the
however. it needs to
timeline would
done.
be for like the phase one? Like for them to do like the pond and like all the dirt?
It'll be done.
180 days,
I mean, it's not gonna take very
210 days. It's not gonna take very long.
So we're gonna have to
It's
pay
just-
$1.6 million this year.
900,000,
Six.
right? It's a dirt
That
money,
was
right?
six.
Yeah,
Well, we would be into the next budget. I mean, if we waited to start the project till March of next year, we'd be into the second budget year in the second place. So there really wouldn't be,
We can take it all.
well, because I'm sure we were gonna allocate, I mean, the budget was gonna be similar in next year's budget, which really, like I said, we would be for the whole thing roughly $300,000 short. Now, however, if we ended up with the $600,000 grant, if we were lucky enough to get that again, then we really wouldn't be short.
I know, we're
Budget
not-
650 this year, budget 650 next year, 1.3, not enough to cover phase
That's
one.
what I was kind of. thinking.
Roughly.
but we're not budgeting 650,000 every year for park.
No,
I mean, we
a
don't have
couple
that
years,
kind of
a
money.
couple
going
of
forward.
years.
Peg Mason statement.
Well, I'm glad we didn't say that about your streets. but-
Thank
No, same
you.
thing. Hey, I didn't spend anything on street.
Well,
Those days
But
might come.
again, we've known for a long time that the pond is a need. It's not.
I don't think
It's
it's
not,
past.
doesn't fall in the want yet.
It does keep getting.
I mean, if we end up not doing the amenities after 2 budget years, it really would be done. I mean, you can always forecast out those
It would probably
other
go, it
amenities.
would probably go to 3 by the time that invoicing, things happen, the
Well, in that
invoicing,
respect,
the
yeah.
follow-up.
Yeah.
I
At
think, yeah.
least minimum of 3 years.
But
would
as
make
far as
sense.
the extra stuff, if the money's not there, then we would at least have our new pond and we'd be out of the woods for whatever problems that may cause down the road.
Right now, all the runoff, this doesn't stay in the pond.
So long story short, I mean, I can't speak for Nate, but I'm comfortable with fixing the problem. And if the money's there, then we'll go on with the accessories and stuff. If it's not, whoever's sitting here, whether it be me or somebody else, is gonna have to understand that once you fix the pond, that may be it for a while. And rightfully so,
Which, if that's the decision that has to be made, then
because we kind of got to figure out if we're gonna move forward. It sounds like applying for the grants, everyone's cool with trying to get this Oslo grant submitted in.
Absolutely.
September,
Yeah,
so do it.
Definitely need to get that done.
And that will determine some other discussions, but we do have to
Filing
award or
grants.
decline the bids. So is everyone comfortable then moving forward with awarding the bid?
Don't we have to vote on it?
So, so-
House meeting, we don't,
John's calling to order right now.
yes,
No,
money, and it'll be roll call.
not there.
I mean, and then, you know, there also, once we award the bid, because obviously we can't talk about anything, you know, once the bid is awarded, then maybe we could work with whoever the contractor is on starting next year versus this year. And
Ways to save.
we just can't,
on- Well, there's other ancillary costs like tree removal and dewatering and other things that, and then hauling of dirt. So there's, you know, several opportunities nearby that use a lot of dirt, like 2 landfills sitting there. There are potential opportunities to save some of those costs.
so I guess we're okay on the grant. I'd like to just, if we could put it on next week's agenda then to award the bid and,
Just, yeah, and just a heads up, I did get the number. Last time when we applied for an OSLAD grant, they wanted 6,000 to do it. This time it's only 4,700 because they got all of our information. So it'll be a $4,700 ask to have them write the OSLAD grant. Thank you for your time.
Well, good job putting it together, Nate.
Yeah, thank you.
thank you.
Do you want the award of the bid
Easy
on the
understanding.
agenda next week?
Nate, we need to go with the award next week if we're gonna keep this moving, right?
Yeah, I mean, we would need to,
Yes.
the board would need to vote.
I'm
and
not
approve
going to put that on the consent
that-
agenda.
I would. do that.
I'm aware. I'm not putting that on the consent agenda. All right.
And then I think Millie might be here. He's here. Stuff.
And then
Sure.
Nate, did you have something about the agreement with Junior Tackle?
No.
Yes, you do.
It was
I'm happy to talk about it if you'd like.
Sandy has been doing the legal work. on
Then
it.
Sandy should
I would-
maybe
we can
give us a
defer to
heads
her.
up.
So last time we saw this agreement, Junior Tackle had asked that we revise that one section to include that the refrigerator and freezer will stay in the unit or will stay in the press box, but that we can use them or whoever uses the press box gets free use of them. So that language was added. And then the legal description was completed by Willett Hoffman. So I guess at the next project summary, Matt, you could take the legal description off if it's not
Okay.
already. So at next week's meeting, I'd like to get these resolution passed, to get that agreement going so we can get that signed with Junior Tackle.
Yes.
Any issues to that being on the consent agenda?
No.
Nope,
No.
nope.
All right.
That's all we have.
All right. Streets, Chris?
Oh, we've already talked about the sidewalk project that's in front of the fire station, so we'll just skip that. The other one is, if you read your report back, it's the draft resolution approving and authorizing the execution of an intergovernmental agreement between the city of Rockford and the village of Davis Junction to plow Edson Road.
Junction.
Sorry. Junction Road, sorry, because Edson's already ours.
Yes. And we don't plow the other part that's not.
Yeah. So, you know, the north portion of which we drive over anyway. So this is just recouping some of our costs for going over it anyway. And they've agreed in what, 5% increase per year for the next?
Yeah, the same that we had on
Is
the
that
previous
5 years?
contract.
Yeah.
I believe it is.
Yeah.
I'd have to look at it to confirm. It's the same length as our contract that expired this past March.
Yeah, well, we have to drive over it to get to our plow our section of Edson Road anyway, so.
We're not gonna come out here to plow that anyway.
I have no idea. What did they do in the past?
They do
We
not
al-
come out.
We've always
Well,
done it.
well-
Well, there you go. So, and we get to get some of our money back for going over it anyway, so that,
Put towards my pond.
yeah, sure, why not? I don't remember even how much it is, but it's in, I'm sure it's in the board packet.
$6,700.
There you go,
a year.
$6,700 a year. With 5% increases for the next 5 years, and it'll be on the consent agenda if anybody, unless anybody has a problem with it, in which case we could take it off. There you go. That's all I got, unless Fergie has something.
Can I circle back to your fire station project?
Yeah, sure,
There
go
really
ahead.
was not a conclusion to that. There was a lot of debate and discussion about whether or not you were going to move it to the spring. Are you going to continue those discussions? But Matt's going to need direction at some point, one way or the other with a vote.
Yes, with a vote. Oh, gotcha. Yeah, well, Fergie and I will talk about it, but I'm leaning in the direction of waiting till the spring.
Do you want it all on the agenda for vote next week? Or do you want, I mean, how far out can we go, Matt, before we need an answer to the bidders?
I can check with Dale, but I'm assuming you probably have 60 days probably to actually take official action after so I mean, any of your voting meetings in September for sure, and maybe even your first one in October.
Okay. You'll let me know when you're ready for it to be on the agenda for a vote.
Yeah, maybe this week.
I can do
So
it next week
I'll-
if you want to.
Yeah,
right,
I'll
just let me know.
let you know.
Okay.
Let me discuss it with Fergie.
Okay, I'll wait to hear from you.
All right, thanks.
Utilities, Nate,
Mhm.
Nathan, sorry.
That's all right. I guess it's been a busy week. 2 weeks here. I was gone and the wonderful staff that we have and Sandy and all the others and Rick, apparently, I saw somewhere you had a shovel in your hand at one point.
It was only for a photo op.
Have done a great job getting us back to where we needed to be, but the little knowledge that I've accumulated through all this, I'm gonna ask Brent to kind of.
Well, I was gonna kind of give about a really high level overview of it, unless Brent wants to.
All right.
We did our breakdown of what happened as a group. We sat down, went through it. And again, if you want to do it, by all means.
No.
I know you love talking to people. Early that morning, 8, 9 o'clock, Brett and Kyle Magnuson were out flushing hydrants. Brett had to leave us for medical reasons not associated with the village. And he left for the day. And about 10 o'clock by the graph, you can see the water starting to go down in the tower. It was probably about 2 o'clock that the warning started going off. Is that about right? That the low water warning in the tower started going off. And it's one thing we've learned from this is we're actually gonna raise that level slightly if we can. We're done. It's not gonna give us much, but it goes off at about 80,000 gallons, what we figured 5 feet is. We're gonna raise it up to 8 feet. But once the water got down to that level, shortly after 2:30, we were empty. In the meantime, Sandy had called me, told me we have an emergency going on in the village. I couldn't break away to be here. We sent the whole crew out that was here to go out and try and find a leak where we lost hundreds of thousands of gallons of water. They had thought they'd found it at 70 or 251, just east of the bridge that they were in construction on. There was a lot of cloudy water on the north side of the train tracks, and on the south side of the train tracks, it was crystal clear. And a couple times they'd seen air bubbles, and a couple times they saw clear water pop to the surface. So we really figured that's where it was. And they made the call to shut the valve at 72 and 251, right by the gas station, or right by the.
Freebies, the auto recycling center.
So that valve was closed. When that valve was closed, we were at 0 PSI and we watched the pressure start to come up, and it came up to about 17 PSI, and it's almost like the whole system burped. For lack of better terms, or it was a good analogy from Jason Bose, was that it hit the pressure where people's stuff started refilling. And all of a sudden we were back down to 0 PSI again. So the pump's continually running. It was pump 1, I believe at the time, well 1. And we started seeing an increase in pressure and increase in pressure. As we started hitting up around that 15 PSI again, I think it changed over to pump 2. We dropped back down to about 10 PSI. And then the pressure started coming up again. It was getting later in the evening. We set up people to sit and watch the pressure all night long. I think we left, we were 15, 16 PSI, and we managed to get up to about 20 PSI overnight. But we never gained beyond that. So the decision was made early in the morning to shut down another valve upstream in case that valve wasn't holding. Next upstream valve was directly across from JC's on the northwest corner of 251-72. That valve was closed. The radio call came in that he was closing the valve and that he listened to it after he closed it, and there was no sound of water. Brent Weaver literally got up from the water, from the well house, walked out to the water tower, and by the time he got there, it was already at 40 PSI. So as he hit the building, I went back out, it was already at 52 PSI. So we were climbing. Right after Kyle closed that valve, Jason had pulled up in front of him where he closed the valve, and it's about a 6-inch hole popped open in the ground right in front of him, right in front of where he parked. And that's where the water was holding the land together. So we figured once the water pressure went away, the earth just collapsed. And that's where 4 culverts go across. The culverts, 2 of the culverts had collapsed into the hole. It eaten. So all that water actually escaped about a 3-inch hole. Did we bring the pipe today?
To the back of my truck.
So if you guys want to see it, the pipe's here, about a 3-inch hole and a 12-inch pipe. Drained all that water out at the northwest corner, 251-72. So even our initial thoughts of where the leak was wrong, but there was evidence that we could have probably seen that was showing that that water was actually crossing through those culverts, through all the cattails in front of JC's, and down into that wetland where we thought the original leak was. So there was, it was great that we found it when we found it. I think the staff did a phenomenal job. I really just tried to stay out of their way and give them what help support we could. We were working with different agencies, but between, was his name Jim and Jason, our water
Operators.
operators, there you go, that's the term I was looking for. Poor Brett was probably killing himself trying to get out of a hospital bed to be here. And it had to make him, because I know how he is. He wanted to be here, but he was still on the phone and he was making calls and helping. Brent Weaver, George, just, Kyle, but, Nate, even Nate was up there helping, in East Park. So we had all kinds of people. Whether we determined there's probably things we could have done better, but for what we were working with, we had no signage. We'd never had a break in our mains before. We'd never experienced that.
No, Nate and
before.
I made some.
Yeah, so there were signs printed up and stuck on barricades. We have signs ordered now. Which
They are
ones?
not, they should have been. Kyle was.
And even our village to the west of Stillman realized that during our break, they don't have signage either. So they're ordering some. So to hopefully that, this left each a lot of other places that you don't expect it, but it happens. And we went into the boil order. So we'll go back to Saturday. It was what, 10:30 when we started feeling the pressure. The hole opened up 11 o'clock-ish. Jason Bowes got on the phone, found a couple contractors. Only one of them was willing to come out and actually do it. They said they'd be here about 5 PM. They showed up about 1:30, which saved us a tremendous amount of time. They made the repair in a few hours. George was already doing water sampling, and we were on the hope that we were going to be 24 hours to get our samples in, get back, and we'd have the boil order lifted. That 23.5 hours, we got the notice from the state that because we lost all pressure, they wanted 48 hours of testing. So we were pushed off yet another day. We had to take that to the public and let them know. It was a lot of scrambling, and there were a lot of people doing a lot of work that, I thought it was comical that somebody put that in there about the shovel because it just happened that I had it in my hand because I was knocking away a hole. And all I was trying to do is keep people from falling in the hole as it opened up, because we had one person walk right up the edge of it and they're standing over the hole. It was already eroded under that. So it's like, let's just knock the stuff down. But it wasn't me. It was our staff. It was, I mean, Sandy was at her lake office, I think is what you called it. And she's on the phone the whole time, calling people, fielding calls from the village. I mean, there are a lot of people saying that the village isn't answering. Well, there's only so many calls you can answer. There's only so many.
Just one person.
Right.
Well, at one point Friday
Oh, yeah,
afternoon,
consider
Nate
that.
walked into my office and I handed him the phone. The parks
So-
was answering phones. I'm
So,
like,
and as much, and I guess one of the biggest things for me out of it was we could do with a lot less of the keyboard warriors in this world that just wanted to stir problems.
Yep.
And there was a lot of that going on. And instead of finding out the truth or waiting for the information, people just putting stuff out there that made no sense of it, but it was enough that people were believing it and running with it and don't need it. I mean, we're in the midst of doing all that, in the midst of all these people trying to do what they were trying to get done, to get the water restored, the last thing we needed is people stirring the pot.
Well, we have a lot of know-it-alls around here. That's the problem.
That day they were water experts. Next week they'll be solid waste experts again, you know,
And solar energy.
it's the same ones.
No,
Ditch digging for ponds.
The ones that say they're so glad that they don't live here anymore, we are too.
just out of curiosity, is there is there a better way that we could communicate stuff to people?
That was one of the things that came up, you know, first of all, signage would have been great. If we could have gotten signage out right away once we got to the boil order. To have it, we made it. It would have
People
been,
aren't leaving their houses.
people-
How would they
No.
see the sign?
Here's the thing, and there was I did feel the phone call about this one, which was, I don't have internet, what do I do? Within an hour or two of us finding the issue at the water plant, I had already notified 4 TV stations, a radio station, the newspaper. It was on our Facebook and it was on our website. I don't know how much more we can do. And not only did we notify those
can't.
news stations, but by 4:30 one of them had already published our story that this was a boil order in effect. And so I'm not sure what other things we could have done. And while I get that that's frustrating as a resident, there are limitations in what we can do with the things that we have. And yeah, we do have a reverse phone call system that we could install for thousands of dollars a year. Is it worth it for that one
No.
time? I mean, this is the first
No.
time since I've been with the village in 2011 as planning and zoning that we've had an issue like
Yeah,
this.
it's not-
So
I think we took care of it really well.
I think, again, I think the staff did phenomenal. They did absolutely outstanding. And this is something we came to the conclusion of during our breakdown. Did we make mistakes?
Just saw
Yeah, we made a few.
a use
But-
thing where like.
And the best thing was within,
I asked,
it was literally
No,
within 24 hours of us within 24 hours of having the alarms go off, that the repair was underway.
I do want to start.
And they did that
Yeah.
pretty
So
fast.
Chris just mentioned a text thing. I thought you were on the board. You might not have been on the board yet, but I brought to this board before using a texting system
reimbursement,
that they could use for permits and other things. So it solely wouldn't be used for that purpose. And the board decided that that was not something they wanted. Circling back to that is going to be my sign. A lot of people complained that the information wasn't on the sign, but I don't know if you guys have noticed that sign has
You-
not worked in
yeah.
over 2 months. In over 2 months, that sign had said nothing but the date on it and the weather.
I think I
There's a lot of
fielded
frustration
some
with that.
information on that too. I go,
But I asked this
can't.
board
Right.
last budget or when we were budgeting to please budget for that, and this board was not interested. And so it's frustrating that we ask for these things and get told no, and then I have to field these phone calls asking about programs. This board, I'm not blaming anybody individually, has chosen not to. But now that this has occurred, if somebody is interested in evaluating either of those programs or either of those things, please let me know. I'm happy to get updated quotes on that information. But that is a valid program that we've looked into before.
I got an email like the day of or the day
Ah,
after
that's
of it,
good.
right? And I don't think it had anything they didn't know our stuff. It was just the stuff, something I get on a regular basis anyway, and it said notifications, and I didn't know what you know, I had people told me that, you know, we had to have hanging door tags within 24 hours of it. I have
We
That-
did
no
not.
idea what
So
the notification
type of-
codes are.
the
We're gonna
type of-
stop the people that are working on it to go.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I
So
think,
just-
well,
gonna
I
say-
think this is a great clarification point for all of you guys. So, the clerks actually had this conversation in their, chat line earlier this week too, which is where do you hang a boil order notice? And I learned something crucial in this is wherever the IEPA and IDPH tells you to, that's what you do. So for us, we were directed that we had to do it via social media because it was a townwide event. Social media for them does not mean just Facebook. It meant Facebook, website, newspapers, radio stations,
Oh.
and TV stations.
So that's what they dictate.
And so that's what they dictated. We took our direction from them. It's not a door hanger situation because I'd have to hang 700 or 672 door hangers. It's just not feasible. But I do think we do have the door hangers of 672. For some reason, we were told to. We do have enough for that. But those directions as to what happens comes from the operator's instructions from IDPH and IEPA. And so while we had great people letting us know that we needed door hangers, we actually didn't.
I have no idea.
Well,
those
on
people
top of
already
the-
knew.
on top of door hammers, anybody goes through an election around here, they'll go through weeks after the election and still see the election material hanging on people's front doors.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
Yeah.
door hangers don't work.
if
They work-
Amazon order doesn't come or
They work. for
a
some-
neighbor person doesn't stop by, I'll never know.
Most people,
Or hanger.
most people go through their garage.
I was sure that somebody had dictated rules that you had to
Yes.
follow.
Yeah.
There's, if there isn't a rule for it,
Again,
I'm surprised.
It wasn't anything we were doing wasn't what we were choosing.
Right, it's
It was,
rules. to
most of it
follow.
was dictated by the state on what we had to do for testing, how long we had to do it, where we could do things. And one of the statements that was made right out of the gate is, well, what are we doing? Well, whatever we're doing it.
Yeah.
Well, you
we're-
can't-
We're gonna do everything by the book.
You can't stop breaks. I don't care what anybody says. You know, I've seen 4 main breaks where I work in the last year. Usually they're caught quickly because they have a torrent of water coming down the road or the sidewalk or wherever it happens to be. So, and this one happened to be in a place that was hard to detect. But, you know, you can't stop them. We're gonna have more. So if just hopefully next time we don't lose pressure throughout the whole system, we catch it before then, but it really depends on the location, you know.
And then.
Well, I haven't had,
My front yard, I'll let you know right away. Like,
I haven't had a chance to talk to Brett and Jason about it, but you know, kind of a follow-up, when Jason sent me, the tower and how the level was dropping quickly, when you actually did the math on that, I mean, you figure what the well was pumping, you were losing probably about 2,500 gallons a minute. So my first inkling was, I told Jason, I said, if you do anything, send the crews out along the main transmission lines, the 16s and the 12s. Cause I said, you're not gonna lose that volume out of the smaller mains. So, I mean, they thought they had it down there on 251 by the bridge, but they ended up finding it up there at the corner and stuff. But one thing I wanted to, I guess, kind of, take a look at with Brett and Jason is, if we see, hopefully we won't see that again, but if we do have a break on, a leak, whatever the size, if it's on the main 12 and 16 inch, those lines are designed to take large volumes, very little pressure loss. So you're gonna you open up hydrants on those lines and they shoot like for miles. I mean, it's just that much. And that's the downside too. We do have a higher, static pressure. Was designed that way so we could serve a larger area, but that's the downside of it. With a high static pressure, you get something like that, you're going to get a lot of water out of it. And what I want to take a look at with Brett and Jason is, if we do see something like that on the SCADA showing a drop out of the tower, what valves do we go to first on the main transmission lines to try to isolate it? Because if we can cut that off, the smaller mains, the smaller mains, the 8-inch mains are still big enough to feed everybody and supply. The big transmission mains are to get way out in the distribution system and to provide high fire flow capacity.
So the team, he said we're already working on it, but the team was already working on that morning when that valve was being closed, of what are the next valves we close to
Yep.
start isolating large areas to figure out, because we were not building pressure. They're pushing 588 gallons about going in and out of pump two, and we were seeing 200 all night long going into the wastewater plant. So we knew that wasn't our leak. It wasn't big enough. And then, but it couldn't have, the leak truly could not have happened for our first one in a worse spot to literally burst underneath a culvert. So it's literally feeding up into a culvert
And going
and
right down
going
the
into
road.
a wetland that you can't see
See,
it. It was the worst possible spot we could have had a leak, because
Yep.
everybody, all the guys were running around town, all the people were running around town looking for wet spots. And I mean, you're looking for a giant water leak somewhere,
Yep.
and there was nothing. It was all dry.
On a related note, I do want to thank you, Matt, from Bergie and I, when we sent you over that permit for IDOT to assist in helping us get that completed. And you sent it back almost instantaneously completed. We were like, oh, that was easy.
The Northern Illinois that showed up was fantastic.
yeah, they do good work.
Engel
They do
Electric
good work.
was the other ones that were out there. Was that Engel Electric that was out there checking the lights?
Lights.
I'm not sure.
They were out there, I think, for IDOT, and
Yep.
we asked them a question about IDOT's lights, and
Because it wasn't, yes.
well, with those lights at the intersection haven't worked for a long time, so he's over there checking the lights for us, just out of. So I mean, the contractors that showed up, even though they weren't there for this break, Engel was phenomenal. Northern Illinois showing up 3.5 hours earlier than what they had anticipated. It was great. And we don't know what the bill for this is going to be yet. The emergency authorization was given. William and I discussed it and gave the go ahead, and yeah, William actually came down to the site to see it himself, to see what we were dealing with, and some parts that we're gonna have to replace for IDOT because they were damaged as things collapsed.
That will be taking place tomorrow.
So it was great. It was great to see the team work that well together. And I hope I didn't get you guys away too much. But it was phenomenal. Everybody that was on the phones, everybody was communicating. We had different group chats set up so that we could talk about this group, talking about this, you get off on the side and talk. When I had something to say to Sandy, I'd just reach out to Sandy. But if we were talking about something in the group, we'd talk about it in the group so everybody knew what was going on. It was really good. It was a lot of good communication. Like I said, just a few minor glitches that we could have probably done better, and that's where we learned.
Rick, can I say
I wish you'd
something?
have been here.
Yeah, sorry, I happened to be gone for a long weekend that weekend, but when I left, I had water. When I came back, I had water. So thank you very much. That's all I gotta say. So
Glenda.
Glenda asked if she could say something.
Go ahead, Glenda.
As far as the communication goes, a lot of the residents don't want to get it through their head. There are two official sites for Davis Junction. DJ Rants is not one, and the community, whatever it's called for Davis Junction, is not one. It is Village of Davis Junction on Facebook and the website.
Thank you, Glenda.
You're welcome.
They don't have internet, they just have rants.
Yeah, and there was a lot. I did direct people to our website first because I always updated that first. Social media is secondary to the website because people don't always have social media, but most people at this point have internet access. So always check the website first.
For any of the official announcements that were being made about what we were doing, we focused them all right to the main sites.
Yep.
I have a question that doesn't have to do with the water main break. Do we know, like if we're on plan with the bridge, that road work?
September.
Is it on?
September 20th, according to the sign.
Well, I know, but I just didn't know if we
You know,
had gotten any updates.
The
or
state
anything.
hasn't communicated with me. Did they say anything to you yet?
Officially, no. There is no official update at this
Alright.
point.
Well,
Officially.
the
I
ramp
might be able
page
to
said it
find
was
out.
2
You're
months
looking for
additional.
completion time out there?
I was just kind of
Road
wondering,
As soon as there is an official update from IDOT to share with us.
which Matt said he was gonna check into it. I just
See if
didn't
we
know
find out.
if we had been getting
Matt-
the updates.
Matt, we'll talk after the meeting. So, no need to call anyone. So as soon as there's an official update that is shared for the public, we will absolutely share that information. And we will put it on our website
Thank you.
first, followed by social media, the official village Facebook page second.
So, and even to that stuff that was going around out there, there were a couple things that I missed till later that were on the rants page. One of them was a resident that said they had water in their basement pooling and they couldn't get through to the village. And they couldn't, a couple hours into not having water, I'm guaranteed we knew we didn't have water. We still had people calling, asking us if we knew we didn't have water.
And if we were gonna go home for the weekend without fixing
If we
it.
were gonna leave for the weekend
Yeah.
without fixing.
We live in the neighborhood too.
I would have told that person.
So,
It was.
Weekends, weekends, yeah.
Most of somebody's residents.
We were sweeping everything under the.
having
Inside of
missed
Public
that, I
Works.
actually sent that out. When I finally found it, I sent it out. I think it was George
Weekend.
checked out
Yeah, that house.
the house and it turned out to be a
Yeah.
water heater. So now they not have water, but when they did get water back, the water heater's leaking, so. But I mean, that could have been a clue for us that we missed because of all the garbage.
So the moral of that story, leave a message. It was me answering phones, and at one point me and Nate answering phones, and I answered my cell phone until 11 o'clock on Friday night, and the phone call started again at 6:30 on Saturday morning. I had all the phone calls forwarded to my phone. I kept answering residents as long as they kept calling. But if you don't leave a message and it's just me and Nate or just me answering a phone,
You ain't
I'm
gonna-
only one person.
And on
Leave
top
a
of that, you
message.
can still answer the phone if you're still making other calls to
Yeah.
other agencies and.
Yep. Leave a message.
Sandy got us hooked up with, the IDPH with the Ogle County Health Department. And we were getting ready to bring in water. She had me on the phone with them talking about bringing in water, bottled water for the 5,400 gallons a day, I think it was, they were gonna bring in right as that valve closed. So we asked them to hold off for 2 hours and we'd revisit it but there was a lot, just a tremendous amount that was going in every direction and for the armchair quarterbacks in this world that wanna step
Well,
up. There's an
and-
election coming up, folks.
And the thing is, for the amount of, employees, people that we have, things aren't gonna happen that fast.
We were working
But-
as fast as we can.
Well, I know, that's what I'm saying, we only have, I was gonna say,
Yeah.
8 to 10 people.
On a good day.
I mean,
Yeah.
I'm just
Yeah.
estimating,
You know-
thinking that, if people think that they can do a better job,
But the trustee wouldn't take a long
Mm.
weekend.
because they could have done
I,
that all.
I only try to play my long weekends on when things go wrong.
I have to say, I have to tell you, Nate, I have bombed the hell out of you for the first few minutes and somebody said, oh, he's at a music festival.
I know.
Where's our trustee?
I know, yeah,
I mean, I would have been.
not in cell phone land either, so.
Yeah, Brenda
Hmm.
also chose to take
I
that
was
as vacation weekend.
But you
Nice.
can't.
No, because it could happen anytime
It could.
too.
And we don't know. There's no planning.
But we got through it and
And what caused it? What caused the pipe to burst? It's a cement lined ductile iron pipe that blew a hole through the bottom of it.
Found a weak spot and just,
farted.
It
Just
could,
had-
one that I loved the most was it could literally have been sitting on a rock
Mhm.
no.
and it wore,
And then over time, the vibration just or whatever just eats away.
I mean, so
That makes
what
sense.
caused it?
we don't.
Oh, we'll never know.
We're
Oh, wow.
acquiring minds. I don't know. All right, well,
Won't be the last time.
do you have anything else?
Nope.
All right, I think that completes me unless anyone else has anything else that they would like to add to this.
It was exciting.
All right. Well, that completes me.
All right.
Rick, I have a question for
Go
you.
ahead, Bill.
Don't we have a compact with the rest of the villages around here to request them for help?
IGA, yeah.
We have an
Pardon me?
IGA, intergovernmental agreement.
Okay, I'm sure, Stillman and all the other people learner would have sent a lot more people in if we needed them for help
Um,
with trucks and equipment and
Bill,
stuff,
we had that conversation. So I was in touch with both the clerk and operator in Stillman, and our operator was in touch not only with Stillman's operator, with Byron's operator. So we were in touch with the other communities.
I don't know about any compact. That's what my question
Yeah, we
is.
have.
Yeah.
We all, it even goes down into equipment. So if we don't have something,
They might.
like I think we stock a fire hydrant that we all use, that we in Stillman use, something along those lines.
We keep an extra fire
An
hydrant.
extra
in stock.
hydrant in case one gets run over.
No.
There's something where we keep parts that they,
Yes,
that
we-
they
we
keep
all
other
have different
parts.
parts and stuff. that we
Right,
all-
so that if
We're gonna make
if we
one.
need it, we're not both trying to stock the same parts.
I don't want to hear that we only had 10 people and that's why. So the progress
No,
was hindered.
The problem was where
That
the
wasn't-
leak-
I don't believe that.
because of our staff.
Additional people here, additional people in
So
my
what?
small office
not
was
gonna
not
do
going to assist in answering phones. And so we did reach out, we did have several other communities reach out to us in addition to us reaching out to them. And so there was plenty of cross communication during that time.
We will be better prepared, I'm sure, with more help that's available from our surrounding communities, because they'd call on us first and
There,
we'd like to be able to call
There
on
was
them.
nothing they could do to assist,
Right,
but
there
they
was
did
nothing.
offer.
Yeah.
We did need, in my opinion, like I said, I apologize, I was not there.
Oh, because you control that?
Well, hospital. Anyway, because that crossed my mind as well, Bill, but the problem is you're going to bring in, if you're not needing any specialized, as Rick said, either parts, equipment, something like that,
Mhm.
you don't, at that point in time, you don't need 10 people that don't know this village, don't know what's going on, because then all they're doing is, what do I do? What do I do?
Right.
And you're trying to handle the task at hand, yet you're also trying to direct 10 people that don't have a clue what is going on. Now, it's great to have that. If we need them, that is great. But in this particular instance, it might have made the situation even worse, because we would have had more bodies running around that didn't know what to do. But like I said, it is a great resource. It's to have these IGAs when needed. So I do agree there.
I would like to see a compact that results
I don't know what.
in more help.
The IGA.
And that's what I'm
intergovernmental
saying.
agreement.
I don't care what anybody tells me.
Okay,
More
then,
people are the better, and someone's got to give direction to people, you know. If there's a fire, we call in everybody, you know.
That's perfect.
We
we don't
Same
call
thing
in
on
everybody
this.
when there's a
Again,
fire. We call in
I was
the
gonna
resources
Say
we
that the
need.
reason I didn't call a lot of the trustees.
But as
You
you
guys don't
said,
know
you
the
don't care what
system.
other people say.
The what?
So you guys don't know the system. The only thing I could have told you is you don't have water. You guys already knew that. So I didn't call a lot of the trustees for that reason. They don't know the system. They don't know where the stuff's at.
well, I figured if you would have needed help.
You would have called.
You would have asked.
And we did
That's
it.
how I see it.
I mean, I would have came home if it was that important. I mean, someone could have called and said, hey, after a week.
But
I mean, if our town's on fire, I'll come and throw a bucket on it. I mean, it's,
That's good. to know.
I mean, or if we're losing water, I'll go save a bucket, you know, like, but.
It saved a few.
But I think what we're taking away from this bill is that there are resources that we just didn't need to use those resources because we had a handle to our best of our ability. What we're taking away going forward is a better action plan and a better preparedness for situations like this that may arise in the future. So if I took away, we're doing some things different, shutting down valves and things of that nature and being ready a little faster for these situations in the future.
Can I say one thing?
Again, I am done.
Can I say one thing about notification?
Yep.
That maybe some neighbors
Can you
would
speak
just,
louder?
maybe some neighbors would, instead of being like on the internet, go knock on their elderly neighbor's door. That might be helpful. I mean,
Gonna put it
because
on
I did
YouTube
reach out
something.
to,
That's a
my
great-
family, so.
I mean,
I bet you would without a,
oh, yeah,
Oh, you probably
that-
would.
oh yeah,
that's
And-
something to remember, because that's a good.
And
that's a
while-
great.
Also good.
And while
beacon.
I agree with that, it goes back to the exterior notice, and unless you left your house, you wouldn't know
No.
that. Most people
True.
don't pay attention
Well,
to those signs till they're
Oh,
home.
they see
Yeah.
my name on
They-
it.
I mean, the neighbor just knock on the door and say, hey, I've seen this.
The time of day
That's
it happened, and by the time we hit the boiler was right about the time people were coming home from work.
Yeah.
So
Most people knew. Most people.
it was,
Right.
it was,
Yeah, I mean.
it was rough.
I may give a.
Again, you know, like I said,
I think he called me.
Either way, I think-
all night long monitoring.
Thank you,
Even
everyone.
early
You
in the
did very
morning,
well.
Yeah.
People,
Yeah.
people came in when they had
Couldn't
other
pay for
appointments to
Sunday.
make, and they stayed as late as they possibly could, but they had to be to. And then
Mhm.
took off, went to that, and then came back.
Yeah.
So it was not like, there was nothing lackadaisical about it.
No.
I know.
That it?
I'm unfinished business.
All right, unfinished business. Anything on Verizon or LR lease?
No.
We're gonna get LR lease somebody else.
I thought about going.
Public,
Nate, can we go back to discuss the bid on the pond? Does that include security, being that we have had vandalism at the park in the past? Did they include something to have a guard or something out there at night to
For fencing?
protect equipment?
Fencing would be included.
The area will be fenced off and segregated from the rest of the park, so, that would be the contractor's
I think,
Insurance.
responsibility to care for their equipment and stuff.
That's safe work zone while they're gone.
Yeah. So, yeah.
I was just wondering, considering that we have had trouble in the past as far as their equipment goes. So they'll safeguard it themselves.
Yep.
Okay, thank
Yeah, I'd be
you.
curious to see what kind of fence that would put up around that. Like, are they just doing like a snow fence or are they?
I would
they'll do
assume
it, put like a
Yeah.
10-foot
Yeah.
like chain link, I would
Probably like
assume,
a
but
construction
I don't want to
fence.
assume anything. Then the
Usually that's-
situation.
We'll have
Construction
perimeter
fence.
silt fencing, of course.
Okay.
And then we'll, in addition to that, we'll have exclusionary fencing for the rec path.
Okay.
for Areas where the traffic. They're not gonna wanna go in there.
Oh, no,
It's
well,
gonna be a big dirt.
right. Alright.
That it?
Anything else, Glenda?
No, thank you.
So before we close, again, I'd like to thank everybody that worked on getting this resolved, because it was a big deal. It was tough for them to find it, for them to do the work, for what they did, the hours they put in. I thank you.
Yes, thank you, everyone.
I'll acknowledge I'd rather have no electricity than no water.
I don't know.
Do you want to share what that is before we close?
Oh, so we have treats out here, kind of it was just stuff to buy for not only for the fixing of the water and the great job that was done there, but as well as celebration of the
Money,
the grant.
money, money, money.
A grant will come in handy for this village. It will help us get more economic development. All right, anything else from the public? Anything further from the
I
board
don't have
members or officers?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Don makes a motion to adjourn, Chris seconds.
Dang,
Any
dude.
discussion?
Wow.
All in favor, say aye.
I
Those opposed, say nay.
was still saying the end.
It's 8:16.